Gravel bikes are the popular choice these days, and we can see why. These bikes suit the needs of many everyday cyclists far better than a road bike, and features like a relaxed riding position, stable handling, wide tyres, mudguard mounts in many cases, and hydraulic disc brakes make a gravel bike an easy one to recommend to newer riders and those looking for one bike to rule them all. Here are 6 of the best gravel bikes that we've ridden and reviewed, so you can sleep easy knowing that these really are among the best bikes on the market. Before we get to the gravelly goodness, we'd very much appreciate if you could subscribe to our channel. If you like this vid, then give it a like, and you can even hit that bell icon to get notified each time we post a new video. But back to the bikes. To form our selection of bikes for our 6 of the best series, we always turn to the people that have actually ridden these bikes, the road.cc reviewers, and the CONDOR BIVIO is one that our reviewers said absolutely must be included. Boasting a beautifully made Columbus steel frame with a stunning ride quality, the CONDOR BIVIO Gravel is well suited to long adventures, whatever the terrain. The comfort levels are impressive, while the endurance-based geometry delivers a machine that is stable on loose surfaces, but with just enough edginess that you can really have some fun. A steel frame, even a quality one like the BIVIO's, is never going to compete on the scales against the top-of-the-range carbon frame. But to be fair to the CONDOR, it totally defies its 10.3 kilogram weight, thanks in part to the sensible ratios of the Shimano GRX group set, but mostly because of the get up and go way it rides. The BIVIO Gravel is an absolute blast. Give the pedals a kick and the CONDOR feels responsive, and while you still get that lovely smooth feel of the steel tubing, stiffness is very impressive. The tube lengths give quite a racy position. The 55cm model that we've tested comes with a 555mm effective top tube and a 135mm head tube. That's quite a low front end on a bike of this type, but it's what we think makes the BIVIO fun yet reasonably predictable. It's not such an aggressive position that you aren't relaxed when resting on the hoods for long stints in the saddle, but when you do want to get a lick on, you can stretch yourself out, crouch down on the drops and really go for it. Its slacker front end, long chain stays and associated wheelbase mean that while it is a placid machine on the tarmac, on the gravel it behaves like a race bike does on the road, if you get my drift. The handling is precise without being twitchy. If you hit some loose gravel at speed in the middle of a corner, there's so much feedback coming through that beautiful tube set and full carbon fork that even though the bike is sliding sideways, you know exactly where the tyres are heading, and you can hold that slide until the grip comes back. Now, we've reviewed the BIVIO as a frame set, as CONDOR's website allows you to spec it to suit your riding. Ours came with the Shimano GRX 815 Di2 2x group set, a mixture of Data Zero and CONDOR finishing kit, plus a Celitalia saddle. CONDOR's own hand-built wheels are shod with Continental Terra Speed tyres. That little lot would set you back £3,700, which isn't stupid money for a bike of this kind, but there are cheaper builds available. Before you start worrying that our collection of gravel bikes is going to be full of expensive options, here we have one of the best value bikes on the market right now. MERLIN's MALT G2X keeps a lot of what we loved about the first model. The G2X has been given a few geometry tweaks that make it more accessible to a wider range of rider heights, but on the whole, the MALT still has neutral and balanced handling, which makes it ideal as a first graveler. It's also the perfect bike for those who enjoy spinning for hours off-road without having to focus too much on what's going on underneath the tyres. You can just kick back and enjoy the scenery. That makes it sound a little dull, but in fact it is the opposite. It's fun to ride because it's so controllable and easy to live with, which also makes it pretty efficient on those longer rides. That's only helped by the comfortable position the new geometry allows. The steering is still quick enough to deal with the trails though. It's not quite as sharp as the more race-oriented gravel bikes we've ridden, but you can still chuck this thing about should you want to get a shift on. This relaxed handling means the MALT isn't as lively as a road bike once on the tarmac, in the dry anyway, but it's not trying to be a replacement, so it's not exactly a big deal. On its standard 35mm Schwalbe G1 tyres, it rolls well enough and it's not a chore through your gravel link-up roads. Stick a set of wide slicks on though and it cruises at a decent pace and covers big miles in relative ease and comfort. Should you press it into the commuting duties, its mild manners only help on the wet, cold and greasy roads. The Shimano GRX 600 group set is brilliant, and while you do step down to GRX 400 brake calipers overall, this is a very good bike in terms of value at $1,199. 199. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99. 99 From one bike that delivers on the value score to another, the giant Revolt Zero offers very impressive performance on the road and in the woods, with an easy agility that makes it fun to carve through the corners. The fast rolling tyres aren't for the committed off-roader, and the alloy frame can be a little harsh despite its carbon fork, but the Revolt Zero is a fine all-rounder, and there's nothing to hold you back on your commute or weekend road rides either. How fast the bike is and how nicely it climbs despite the reasonable heft of 10 kilograms will surprise you. It doesn't feel sluggish at all, and we've been fortunate to test some of the very expensive gravel bikes over the years, but we're still impressed with how well the Revolt Zero conducts itself. Geometry is loosely based on endurance road bikes, but with slacker angles and a longer wheelbase for extra stability. And for pure enjoyment and grim factor off-road, the Giant does not come up short at all. Where you can detect the difference between this and more expensive bikes is in the lack of suppleness on the road. There's a fair amount of feedback through the contact points on hard surfaces, even with the tyres at low pressures. It's never overly intrusive, but the Revolt Zero certainly can't match the silky smoothness of a carbon or titanium gravel bike. Okay, the comparison is maybe unfair, but it's worth bearing in mind. The combination of the short stem and swept back contact XFD fuse handlebar is great. For riding off-road, having the handlebar close makes cornering and generally controlling the bike much easier than if it's stretched out ahead. And while the ovalised top section still provides good comfort for cruising along, the short reach to the hoods and drops gives you total control. One thing we love about Giant's bike is that the tubeless setup comes ready to go with sealant inside. The bike shop that you buy from will do this for you, meaning one less thing for you to do before you can actually go out and ride. If you're looking to embark on some of this gravel and adventure fun that's sweeping the land at the moment, but don't want to spend a massive chunk of cash, the Revolt Zero is seriously worth considering, especially as it's also so versatile and ideal for daily commuters looking to enjoy the benefits of big tyres, disc brakes and relaxed geometry. Cannondale's TOPSTONE Carbon Lefty 1 is a technological tour de force. A sub 10 kilogram full suspension gravel bike with a monoblade lefty fork is also a hoot to ride and well suited to fast riding on a wide range of surfaces. Yes, it's expensive, but nice things often are. First things first, do you need a full suspension gravel bike? Given that the Rough Stuff Fellowship have been hoiking Doors Super Galaxy Tourers and such like across inappropriate terrain since the 1950s, it's easy to argue you don't need a gravel bike of any sort to have fun off-road. And if you're going anywhere you properly need suspension, there's a whole world of mountain bikes out there waiting for you. So is the TOPSTONE a niche within a niche with limited appeal? We'd argue not. Off-road surfaces are bumpy, stop me if I'm getting too technical, and that's why the trend in gravel biking has been towards larger chamber tyres. 10 years ago, you'd have been hard-pressed to find anything bigger than a 740C. Nowadays, 650B wheels and 50mm tyres to fit them are fairly commonplace. Go any bigger than that though, and the tyres don't work nearly as well on the tarmac. Adding a small amount of suspension gives a comfort gain on the rough without really sacrificing speed on the smooth, provided you do it right. And Cannondale has done it right with the TOPSTONE Carbon Lefty. At the back, the suspension is a combination of the frame and the seat post. There's just a single pivot between the seat stays and the seat tube. Cannondale claims the system offers up to 30mm of rear wheel travel. If the suspension at the back is as simple as it comes, the opposite is true of the front. The Lefty Oliver fork on this bike is specifically designed for gravel riding and again gets just 30mm of travel. The process of adjusting to a monoblade fork like the Lefty Oliver is similar to the process of adjusting to carrying bikes on a rear-mounted carrier on your car. You spend the first few miles fretting that it's all going to go horribly wrong, and then you forget about it and enjoy the rest of the journey. Now, the upshot of all this tech Cannondale has crammed into the TOPSTONE is that it's a great bike to pilot over less technical stuff, and it's not compromised on the road either. Even though the approaches to suspension at the front and rear are very different, the bike feels very well balanced. Away from the suspension, the geometry offers a good balance between speed and comfort. For your £6,600, you'd probably be hoping for a fancy spec sheet, and that's what you're getting. SRAM's Force E-Tab axis and 12-speed Eagle axis components combine to give you a 40T chainring with a whopping 1052T cassette. There's also a rather cool looking Cannondale hologram save system bar at the front end, so you'll have plenty of tech to geek out on with your riding buddies. The KINESIS TRIPSTER ATR is a founding father of the new gravel adventure bike scene. ATR stands for Adventure Tour Race. This third iteration of the bike feels like it's come of age in terms of its adventure capability, while keeping the comfort, road manners and reasonably lightweight it's always had for covering distance at speed. It's an excellent frame set around which you can build any number of different bikes. The TRIPSTER ATR V3 remains the same thing it's always been, a multi-surface, multi-purpose drop bar bike made from cold-drawn butted seamless titanium tubing. Like the V2 before it, the new bike has 12mm through axles, now with a neat removable lever and flat mount discs. This new V3 bike is built from an entirely new tube set, but the ride is familiar and remains everything you could want from a bike that by its nature can be built up to do very different types of riding. The TRIPSTER ATR V3 is simply a lovely thing to ride. It has the sort of unhurried calm that translates into distance at a reasonable speed. We mostly rode the TRIPSTER on 36mm Challenge Strada Bianca TLR tyres, which are big enough to cope with proper gravel roads, which we're lucky enough to have a bit of around here, while not giving too much away on the flat. Set up like that with a Shimano GRX Di2 group set and a flared bar, the TRIPSTER feels like a bike that's at home on the road but comfortable well beyond it too. The V3 features some small changes. The bottom bracket shell has been redesigned. It's still an external threaded design, which is always welcome, but the internal diameter has been increased, so you can run Di2 cables internally even if you're using cranks with a 30mm axle. The stays have all been reworked, both to increase compliance and to add a bit more heel clearance. The seat tube weld area has been enlarged to beef up that section of the frame. KINESIS expects more of the V3 ATR bikes to be carrying loads on the frame. In terms of clearance, the V3 bike will take a 45mm tyre, but it's also happy running on 650B wheels, where anything up to a 50mm tyre will fit. Our test build came with a GRX Di2 group set, which we really love, Reynolds AR41X carbon wheels and Challenge Strada Bianca 36mm tubeless open tubular tyres. A lovely build for a lovely looking frame set. We'll round out our 6 of the best with the bike that took Off-Road.cc Gravel Bike of the Year for 2020. The RIBBLE CGR 725 is a superb dual drop bar machine that offers a traditional looking frame with modern detail plus comfort, versatility and great value. The combination of steel frame and plump but fast rolling 47mm tyres delivers a comfortable ride on dirt while still being plenty quick enough on the road. With sorted handling that's a happy medium between stability and steering agility, it's quite possibly all the drop bar bike you need for gravel, road or commuting. The CGR 725 is RIBBLE's steel-framed option in the versatile CGR lineup, with all bikes getting very similar geometry but offering you a choice: the low weight of carbon, the affordability of aluminium, or the more premium pleasures of titanium. While the skinny Reynolds 725 tubing means you get some traditional good looks, the downside is a little extra heft in the frame. A claimed 600 grams or so over the aluminium CGR we've tested previously. It's nice and modern elsewhere though, with a full carbon fork and neat tapered head tube with internal bearings plus 12mm through axles at either end. There's a full complement of rack mud guards and bottle mounts, including a bento box mount on the top tube, so you're well catered for. CGR stands for cross, gravel and road, and the geometry is a blend of selected cuts from each discipline. With a fairly tall head tube for good off-road position, low bottom bracket for cross stability, and figures that split the difference with a road bike elsewhere. While jack of all trades and master of none is sometimes a negative comment, it's probably the CGR's main strength, unless you're lucky enough to have a wallet deep enough and garage large enough to house every subset of riding niche from pure road to pure gravel. Having one bike that's equally happy taking care of the daily commute plus weekend gravel or road riding adventures is a strong plus. Part of the beauty of this bike is that RIBBLE allows you to tweak pretty much every element of the build once you've chosen your base group set. SRAM's Apex 1x11 speed group in this case. It starts out as a fairly gravel focused build with 650B Mavic Axiom wheels and chunky 47mm tyres as standard, but we made a few alterations to the stock setup for extra travelling ability. The result is a proper do anything, go anywhere drop bar machine that's as happy racking up some big road miles as it is heading off fully laden for a bike packing adventure. We found the riding position on our test bike to be spot on, while the 140mm long head tube on our small sized frame meant a nice halfway house between fully upright touring feel and bite the stem race position. The real ace card is that all this is backed up by extremely impressive value. There's a solid kit list for the base build that's only improved further by the ability to fine-tune the spec to make it more suited to your exact needs. If we had to reduce ourselves down to owning just a couple of bikes, the CGR 725 would be a very strong contender for the one of those that had drop bars. Well, those are 6 of the best gravel bikes. Agree with us? Then remember to like and subscribe for more. Don't agree with us? The comment section is just below. Tell us what bikes you have in your top 6.